Okay. All right. We're 3 minutes into our meeting. Just want to thank everybody for coming and participating in today's pre-bid conference. We appreciate the interest. I think there's a lot of good questions that were asked to date. I'll start with a few like rules of engagement. So we did ask everybody to submit their questions ahead of time so that we can be prepared to answer them today. Will we accept any new questions today? My immediate answer is probably not. But if there's any clarifications on the questions that were submitted, we would entertain those at this point. The other thing is we're going to do, I think most of you showed up at the last RFI meeting. So I think we're going to skip maybe introductions. But I do want to introduce our team, especially for those that might be new to the group today. So my name is Rachel Godo. I am the Director of Economic Development for the Acadiana Planning Commission. And we're very excited to be able to let this project out eventually. So at some point in time, it's been a long time coming. I think it's been in the works shortly thereafter. 2016 was funded sometime in 17, 18. So it's been a long time coming. And so we're very excited to be a part of this project. And then I'll kick it over to Cade.
Cade Jones, planner one at Acadiana Planning Commission.
I'm Sean Reed. Guys, Mr. Email's email.
Good morning, I'm Robert Miller, UL Latvia, assistant professor, and I helped with the network design.
And a lot of the brains behind what we're doing here.
Keely Bingham with the Acadiana Planning Commission, planning watershed coordinator, and working on the phase 1 of the project. And now Sean has phase 2.
And it's largely because Kelia also coordinates our LWI Region 5 Steering Committee and does a lot of watershed planning. So she's got a lot of work on her plate. So we brought in Sean to help out. And with that, the guest star of today's meeting. I'm just joking, putting a little pressure on him. Iman, you want to say hi real quick? And Dr. Imad leads he's the executive director for the Louisiana Watershed Flood Center. And they've been an integral partner in this entire project. So with that, I do want to just kind of set the tone for the meeting. We were very appreciative for the interest that has been generated from this particular project. And one thing I want to say is I don't construct gauge sites, and I have probably the least of the knowledge out of the people in the room here. So we're really relying on what we want to develop with this contract is not only the expertise required to implement it, but we're also looking for a partner. We have engaged in this particular project. We've done a significant outreach. So there's a lot of buy-in from our communities with regard to our public officials, our elected local engineering firms, also our public works directors. There's been a lot of attention for this project, and there's a lot of interest in having it completed successfully so that there's a lot of use out of it, whether it's for modeling, whether it's to help design projects, to look at flood monitoring and alert reporting. So there's a lot of buy-in with it. So we're looking for that partnership to really develop locally so that we can have a successful project at the end of this. The other thing is, and I alluded to a little bit earlier, but we're looking for a professional to come in and make recommendations. We put our best foot forward with this proposal. There was a lot of questions that were generated. I know we got it to you last minute. There was about 60 questions. And for sake of time, I'm not going to go through each one and read everything verbatim, but I'm going to give generalized answers to some of the questions that were asked in the proposal. But what we're looking for is an expert to come and tell us, some of you have been doing this way longer than we have. And we're looking for that professional expertise and that advantage that you guys bring to the table to say, yes, this is good in the proposal. However, this could be done better and for cheaper. So that's the with all of the answers that I'm going to give today, that's kind of the impression that we're hoping to leave on you guys so that you can take that back and come up with the best proposal possible. Do we have initial questions before we get started into the question and answer response? Okay, so did you all receive the questions last night? Did everybody online receive the questions and responses?
Yes.
Okay, good. We also, for today's meeting, and we'll have it published probably by this afternoon, we do have a set of an Excel document with all of the permits that we have secured to date. And I'll kind of go over that in a little bit, but that is available today and we'll make it available online for those that were not able to attend in person. So the first thing I want to address is staffing requirements. What we put in the proposal was a minimum staff requirements. Ideally, we created, recommendations on what we would like to see in terms of the staff requirements, but we're looking for you to come in and develop the team to be able to complete the project. Part of the minimum staff requirements is a professional engineer. We will have to have stamped designs. That professional engineer does need to be licensed in the state of Louisiana in order to stamp those designs. And the design is mainly not necessarily the network itself, but it's the fabrication of those gauging sites. We're looking for what is the best material that needs to be used in the locations that have been predetermined. So a PE is necessary, as well as a PLS, and I don't remember what that stands for, but the surveying is going to be required to be completed by a PLS certified in the state of Louisiana. Any questions on minimum staff requirements?
I do, but it's part of one of the questions that you may go over. It's under the principal engineer. You have a licensed professional engineer with a combination of construction management and environmental sciences experience. But then you have these areas of 5 years of experience of hydraulic monitoring and various.
Yes, so again, those are minimum qualifications that we would ideally like to see. But if you can propose something to say, I have enough experience, we believe we can get the job done, we would entertain that.
But could they be environmental scientists versus professional engineer?
I would think yes, but we need a PE still to stamp.
Oh,
the
yeah,
designs.
exactly. Yeah, we
Yes.
understand that part. Yeah, we understand that.
Yeah.
It's just on those five, on those, we want to make sure that those did not have to necessarily have a PE, but have the experience in doing so.
Yes,
Because we have various technicians that do the sampling and things like that.
right. And the other thing is, if you have a more qualified staff, you may get awarded more points. Okay. Tricky question, bonding requirements. So we at this point, we have a one-time grant from FEMA to deliver this project. Should there be a huge mistake, APC does not have cash on hand or anything to cover the cost of that. So we're asking that a bond be required, or we're requiring a bond to cover the total contract award. However you come up with that, we just want to ensure that there's enough bonding capacity by the company, mainly the prime contractor, to cover the entire contract award. Any questions? Any questions online regarding bonding capacity? And we did get questions about smaller firms being in a challenging position to be able to bid for this. And what we're asking is that we're just encouraging you to participate with a larger firm or somebody that does have enough bonding capacity to be able to cover the contract award. With regard to permitting and easements, today we gave you a permitting sheet. Probably for a year now, APC has been working on all of the permits that are required with this project. We've contacted DNR and DOTD and CPRA and Wildlife and Fish and every single agency that we could think of. Could there be agencies out there that would also require a permit? Maybe so. Is it, our approach to this, to the permitting requirements is still going to be to work with the contractor during the project to complete all of the permitting requirements so that we can move forward with construction. We do realize that some of the permitting agencies require a certificate of insurance from the contractor. So we will need that in order to complete some of the permits. We also do realize that some of the local entities, like the municipalities, may require some additional permitting. You'll see that on your sheet. You'll also see that, there's one thing I'm forgetting. But anyways, the idea is that we're partnering together to work on the completion of all the permits. There, I think, are 5 locations, which was also addressed in the Q&A sheet, that are likely, that have been identified as private property. So those will require a survey plat, will need a servitude agreement in order to access the site and for installation. Any questions on the permitting?
For the permitting, I noticed that these are just for the installations of the gauges themselves, but the lane closures themselves, we would have to we would do the permitting ourselves.
Yes, in order to access the sites, yeah.
Close the lane.
And we're not, I mean, I know Robert's done extensive legwork, but part of the process is going to be some sort of like initial site visit. So you can see the conditions of the channel, the conditions of the roadway, we've done our best effort from, putting together all of that in the, forget what attachment it is, attachment 7 of the gauge locations. All that has kind of been mapped out for you guys, as well as the map book. So that's our best effort, but we're looking for somebody to come in, visit all the sites and say, this is exactly how it should be done in this area. We realize also from our experience with working with the LWI network that some of these sites may change. What we did in the RFP, because we had to get everything pre-cleared by FEMA, it's already gone through FEMA's total project cost review process and their environmental clearance. We're trying to stay away from adding any site that has not been already pre-identified in the RFP. Because if we try to completely change locations, we'll have to go back through FEMA review, go back through the permitting process, and we just want to avoid all that, to be honest. So we've put 100 sites in there as primary locations, and we've put, I think it was 37 that are alternate. So if one of the 100 should not work out, there's 37 that we can easily change to. My understanding too from the permitting process is if I think we gave a lat long on each of these gauge sites, that might change a little bit. And I think there's a general like area geography that we can still install the permit based on the surveys that come out. But we should not materially change the site altogether, because if it's a completely different site, again, we'll have to go through all that bureaucratic process. So we're trying to avoid that. Any questions on site changes? Let's talk about gauge type changes as well. So again, we're looking for your professional expertise. We are looking at this, and I think our last meeting, we spent a good deal talking about the purpose, the reason why we're doing this project, going into the methodology of how we created the network design. We're open to some changes of site types. Robert, do you want to maybe comment on that? But,
Well, I mean, we just have to be flexible. We understand. I mean, things change. Today, the leaves are off, right? We'll there in a few months and, okay, now something is obstructing. So, but at the same time, I mean, the work that we did to kind of, lay out what's going to be contact, non-contact, kind of looked at everything. We visited the sites where we could, where it was feasible, and basically decided, okay, this is probably the best that we were going to do at this particular location. So we tried our best to accommodate all of that, but you understand that still, when you do the walkthrough, you're probably going to see something somewhere that we might want to go with maybe a little bit of a different approach there.
any questions on that?
For a site that let's say you can't be constructed, the alternates would be then replaced. Do you, and maybe I missed it, reading the RFP, is there a direct connection with, okay, if site 89 can't be put in, site 122 is the alternate that we'd like to go with?
We didn't go to that level of
Right, you
detail.
did.
I think basically like you mentioned, sometimes like a flight should upstream or downstream, that may not constitute as root need change in size, but if you're gonna move it to a, if gonna go to a different stream or something,
Yeah.
that's a minimum.
Yeah, or parish, or, yeah. Yeah, I think there's flexibility there. Regarding warranty or acts of God, the contract period, so we have a 2-year performance period on the contract. What we're looking for is somebody to basically not only install, but maintain those gauges for the life of the 2 years. What I'll also say is, I think there's a couple of questions on like the transfer of ownership. We're actively working on a solution for long-term sustainability and O&M. During the period of construction, that 2-year period, we will more than likely have an answer, and that plan, that sustainability plan, we will work with the contractor to implement that. It could be a combination. There's a couple of different things we're considering. So we're still actively working on that. So we don't have a full answer today, but that will be done by the time the contract period is over. And so during that 2-year period, should a gauge go offline or need to be fixed, we're asking that it be functional, that it be repaired, that if it's completely, like if it's a lemon, that we get another replacement for that gauge location. So by the end of the 2-year period, that the gauges are all functioning the way they were intended to, and that we're transferring over a network that's operational.
When does the 2-year clock start?
I believe I had it in the RFP, could have the dates wrong right now, but it's like, I think we started March of this
So
year,
what-
and then
when the award is, not when the actual.
that's correct. Yeah, from the date of award.
Can you clarify, say like in the instance of UL where a boat strike hit one of the sites there, would that be on us to be responsible for replacing?
During that 2-year period, yes.
Is there a time frame to have the stations back up? Say
So,
with, if
one of the
site
other-
goes down 30 days to be back up or something.
One of the things that I'll say is, and what I should have probably said at the beginning of this meeting, so we had pretty intense conversations with CPRA and also with USGS, who have monitoring networks. And they've been actively doing this type of monitoring networks, and they have an entire program built out for the last 10 years. We don't necessarily have that. So there are going to be questions like this that come up that we were not necessarily, we don't have a program. So there's no requirement yet, but we'd eventually like to develop standards and requirements that address these types of situations. So I don't know necessarily, I can't answer that today if it's going to be 10 days, 15 days, 30 days. But what we're looking for is just a general recommendation from you guys. How long does it feasibly take you to come and get that site back up and running? Eventually we will have maybe some sort of program developed where these types of things will be pretty much standard. But as of today, we don't have any type of standard set. Anything y'all want to add on that? Any other clarifications or questions on the warranty, contract period, acts of God? Anything online? Okay, and then I talked about the maintenance. I talked about encouraging teams. Oh, one of the big, so we had 2 addendums that were issued. One, obviously, we got multiple requests from different vendors to extend the time period. Part of the hesitation is we have to get this proposal submitted and proposed to our Acadiana Planning Commission's Board of Commissioners. They ultimately have the final decision and who gets approved. There is a technical committee that is being developed to review all of the proposals. Once that's complete, once the technical review is complete, a recommendation is made to the ABC Board of Commissioners to make the final selection. That date was already set for February. And so we're not only having to change and extend the period of submissions, but we're also having to change that date. So I can't tell you today just yet but there will be a date and we'll have some additional communications as to when the contracts will be selected. Because we have to coordinate with our board members and all that. So anyways, we extended the 2-week period and we'll also have to adjust the board meeting to make the final selection on that. So that was addendum 1. I'll get to that in a second. We'll take all the comments on the questions that are not relevant to the conversation afterwards. So that was the addendum 1 was regarding the time frame. Addendum 2 had to address the cost proposal. We ran into an issue, and again, we're still working some kinks out, but we ran into an issue where with the state of Louisiana, I think we're in a position where we can't ask for cost as a factor of evaluating a proposal. With that said, we're still asking for a cost because we have a finite budget to deal with. And so it shouldn't materially change your answer, but we're not evaluating cost as a factor in the point system. We're asking for it as a measure of, can it fit within our budget? Do we need to do some value engineering? Who do we want to select as the contractor that can, help it work with us on this type of budget? So that's what we're looking for from a cost perspective. So that addendum 2 addressed the cost situation. And with regard to budget, what I can tell you today is that APC was awarded a budget of 3.8 million for not necessarily for the contract, but for the entire project. That included our preliminary engineering. It included our fees with stakeholder outreach and engagement. So the total budget that we have today is 3.8 million for the entire project. We are also in line to receive additional funding to help support this project. So it's not guaranteed yet, but it's, 80% there. So maybe by the time that the contract is awarded, we may have to do some sort of contract amendment to amend the budget because we likely will get additional funds to help complete the project.
Real quick, so is that determination of additional funding already in line? Let's say you delayed your RFP by 2 or 3 months. Would you still be getting clarity around the additional funding? Or do you sort of need to know how much you're lacking? My guess is you're going to receive proposals that exceed your budget amount. But it sounds like of 3.8, you've already spent some, so you don't have all that left. So then you're going to have to go to someone to say, here's the funding gap we have.
Right.
Is that what you need?
It's part of it, and we're also staying in line to receive an additional supplemental award.
Yeah.
So the thought process here is there may be a value engineering phase where we don't do the entire 100 sites, but maybe those funds will become available during the time of the contract period to complete the rest of the project.
Do you expect that additional funding source to place more requirements?
No, same funding source.
Can you share how much additional funding you anticipate if we do get this?
Not right now. But it is the same funding source. My thought process from what we've in conversation with the folks is that we've cleared all the permitting. There's no additional permitting. There might be some additional reviews that are needed to actually bring those funds online. So I can't tell you a time frame as to when those funds will be available. But they're kind of in line to help supplement the budget. Any questions, thoughts, questions on the cost proposal? You have one? No. Any questions on the online regarding the cost proposal? Okay, let's talk about timeline for a second. So we have a contract award of 2 years. The only real timeline that we're under from a FEMA perspective is that the funds were awarded under disaster 4277, which is the 2016 floods, and they basically have a sunset period. So we're working with FEMA within that period to deliver the project, or FEMA and GOSEP. We've already received an extension. We will likely need to request for another extension. So we're managing that side of the grant award. So the contracted period is for two years. However, there may be some flexibility to extend that should we need it. especially if there's acts of God or different things that come up that may require additional time. Maybe some landowner, I think that was one of the questions, property negotiations with a private landowner that need to take place. So those are the types of things that we just need to be flexible with the timing. But we ideally would like to see this completed within 2 years.
Regarding acts of God, so if we get close to the end of this 2-year project and most of these sensors have been installed and you have a hurricane that comes in here and takes out half of them, is the contractor responsible for replacing those, or that falls under the act of God?
So I believe what we would do in that scenario is probably negotiate that within the contract execution. Ideally, what we would like to see is a functional and operational system to be able to transfer locally. Again, we'll negotiate some of that during the contract period. And there was a clarification on when the proposals are due. February 17th, we moved the date back 4 p.m. I don't think somewhere we had noon, but it's 4 p.m. We'll give you till, yeah, we'll give you till close of business day to get the proposals in. Is there any questions that you all would like to see particularly answered from the questions that were submitted already that we need to go over and address? I brought our whole team here.
Question 35. If we can get that, okay. Number 7 for the RFP.
Yes, so we did get it, and that's one of the things we'll distribute today with the permit sheet and the questions. 35 was in response to attachment 7, which is essentially the Excel sheet that shows all of the gauge site locations and the different site conditions there. What?
I just did that for him. He's like,
She did that manually for me.
not me.
Oh, you took the Adobe and converted to Excel?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions that you guys want to bring up in particular? No.
As for the primary and alternate sites, I'm still trying to wrap my head around when we're writing our cost proposal. Should we just quote the primary sites and then give you the pricing for alternate sites as well, or does it?
You could do that.
Okay,
I think we're pretty flexible with how the budget's structured. We did, so I will say this, and one of the questions had to do with the it was one of the attachments. I think it's the rate schedule. That was just a template. It's a sample for you to develop the actual rate sheet, because obviously the staff may change a little bit. So we just want to see what is the rate for each of the staff members that you're proposing to meet the requirements of the team. And then there was also an equipment sheet. Again, that's just a cost, it's a sample. It's a template for you to utilize to create some sort of budget out of this.
But we don't have to.
We'd like to see it. It's, but modified to what you're actually proposing.
Sorry, you would like to see the cost sheet, what you're saying?
Yes.
This goes along with this.
Yeah.
On, since cost is being taken out of the scoring criteria, and really it's really a request for qualifications, and the selection is going to be based on the qualifications of the team. Has the APC thought of sealing those costs that we submit until once the firm is selected based off of qualifications? Because it's very hard to if you see both, how to take that cost out of the equation when making a decision.
So we'll document that. We'll talk internally and then come up with a response for you guys. On the flip side, I have a very small budget to work with, and yeah,
It's just trying to figure out, internally, which I was trying to figure out, how do you take that out of the equation? How do you take it out of the scoring, even though you know it's there?
yeah. So the scoring, how it's going to work is essentially the one that has the most points is going to, kind of move forward. So cost is there. we're gonna see it, but still, yeah, the points are assigned for what it is, and that's what's gonna be recommended moving forward.
I think I comment on what you said and then I'll do it. So I think with the budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, we would like to see more like a breakdown rather than lumping things together. This way you can see the options, or like do it this way, do it that way, so the more granularity, the best, then I think that would help. Not necessarily to take into account the cost, like Rachel said, but just understand what's the
Exactly.
approach,
Yeah.
right? And I think, Ian, we said about request based on qualifications. I would also add based on the approach and then the innovation and technology and, besides qualifications. Yeah, I'm sure you meant that,
The
but,
whole
right,
scoring, yeah.
right,
all the
exactly,
scoring criteria,
right,
it's
yes.
just,
Yeah.
That was just a question.
right,
I think come up internally in some meetings that we've had. so-
And along those lines, before I forget, there was a lot of costs that were asked, is this part of the contract or does APC pay for it? We're looking for a turnkey solution. So whatever you need to fit in the budget, the only thing that we're considering paying for is the permitting, because we're actively working on the permit process. And so those will be processed through us.
I'm glad you use that word turnkey, because when I hear that, it's the exact opposite of what was, give us the granularity so we can see this, like, do you want a turnkey solution? And if so, we'll give you one for what you primarily asked for. And then you would see other lump sums for the alternatives and the innovation that's in there. But I think a lot of people are going to be challenged with providing the granularity you want and thinking that is and feels like a turnkey solution. Because then sort of in our world of delivering needs, turnkey isn't the granularity of what you're asking. I think those are two very different things that are being asked.
And you're saying granularity in terms of cost, or are there
Cost.
other things?
Lay out the approach. You can have a primary approach, put a cost to it, there it is, lump sum, that's what you get. Should have sort of the same shared outcome and desires you have to deliver the system. And then you could have alternative costs that bring it off,
Right,
either a step down version of it, some innovation into it. But getting away from the rate sheets and everything else that are running.
So I would clarify what I meant by granularity, it's more about the options and different
Of the approach.
approaches.
but not the
Approach.
Yeah, but not like
Yes.
this item will cost this, and, so don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
that's what I meant, like she was asking about, cost for the 100 side and the cost for the, that's what I'm, not going down to the tiny.
I think everybody's struggling with the notion of the cost and all these different options like we're talking about. Have you guys considered, I mean, I know you are looking at this strictly from a qualification standpoint. And you're gonna pick the most qualified team, and a lot of these costs are gonna be similar, no matter who you pick. The equipment's gonna be most of the cost. And there's only a few different manufacturers, so that's all pretty much gonna be the same. So now you're looking at innovation and things like that.
right.
Which you will see in the proposal and the qualifications. Have you thought about not even asking people to produce costs since you have a fixed budget? Once you negotiate, pick the most qualified firm, then you have the discussion and figure out costs and things like that. And really
So-
go into detail on, all right, let's look at these sites and things like that.
Right, so part of the cost is, okay, do I have to go find more funds to finish the project? I just want to know that. Because it's going to be challenging, there's a process that I'm going to have to walk through to find those additional funds. So I'm asking for a cost just so I can have some idea. Last time we met, I think everybody was like, well, this is going to be so expensive. What is so expensive to you? Is it $10 million or is it 3? I have no like ballpark of what this could even cost us.
And I would just add to this, essentially what you're asking is for us to spend $10,000 and $20,000 on this proposal to do a cost analysis that is really on.
And not cost analysis, I'm just gonna say a cost estimate. Just give me some numbers that we can work with.
And then you set your budget and it will fall, and I think that's kind of where we're at. It's the challenge here, right? And I think that gentleman in the middle, I think, has a great idea about ceiling cost. And that way, it's not even in your, you can still go through the process of picking your qualified candidates. And then you can work on costs, but if you're asking us to say, do you have enough money to do the job? Well, there's a lot of effort on our side, a lot of, money spent putting this very large proposal together.
Right.
And so, it is something to consider, and it is very unusual. It's highly unusual.
So we've talked to, when we got that question, we talked to a couple of different agencies who are doing it not much differently than what we're requesting. We did pivot because there was a request that came in, but we're still trying to figure out what went wrong with that original bid. And there's a couple of agencies that already do it. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, we accommodated and I'm okay taking the cost out, but I still want a number to work with. Because again, I have to go figure out how much funding in addition do I need to make this project work. So I'm just looking for some numbers. Give me a cost estimate to work with.
Are you gonna hold the contract for those numbers?
No, that's part of the contract award negotiation portion. However, I am looking for, give me some kind of turnkey solution and not pass all these costs on to us in our budgets that we don't really have.
It's one level of effort to come up with an estimate. It's a different level of effort to come up with a turnkey bid, not to exceed number. So if
It's
the
not
number
a-
that we give you is just for your information, that's one level of effort. If it's, hey, if you're selected, that's the number we're gonna write you a contract for, that's different.
No, it's not the number that we're gonna write you a contract for. And in fact, again, we're in line to give supplemental funding, so that number may change. I'm looking for something to work with because again, last meeting, everybody was like, this is gonna be ridiculously expensive. I didn't know what that meant. Is it 10 million, 20 million? Is it 2, 3? We're hearing some folks can do it very, very cost effectively, and we're hearing that some can't. So I just need something to work with.
And that, to this gentleman's point earlier, when he was talking about sealed bid, it does make, in this world, when you give cost and if you're not evaluated by it, you don't want your cost numbers to, it's a turnkey. You don't want that to get out, if there was another evaluation around. So because it is a point of competition between all of us.
Right.
So I understand where you're coming from, and you need some budgetary numbers, and that makes more sense because we were evaluated on cost, and then we were going to be locked into those numbers. That becomes a little bit more serious on our
Right.
side.
Okay. You're not locked into the numbers. That'll be finalized at contract negotiation, but what we're asking for is give us some idea of the cost that is involved. We'll consider Ian's suggestion about sealing the beds, and then we'll also maybe even consider what goes to the board and what doesn't.
Is there a point where, say, you pick a contractor and you have a certain amount of funds and then you just do a portion of the project? Use the funds that you have, like more like on a stepped approach?
So again, I think there's gonna be a time for like value engineering, and if we have to de-scope some of the project, we'll consider it at that time. There's one other comment and I forgot it. I don't know. Slipped my mind. Any other questions? Anything online from anybody?
Rachel, this is Heather with Res. Apologies if this question has already been asked. We can hear most of the questions, but not all of them. Have you determined how many firms you will shortlist for the cost opening? We understand the sealed cost process, but have you thought about, will you open only the most qualified or top 3?
So you have some thoughts?
No.
Okay. So I think, and maybe we'll have to talk internally about this, but how we would approach it is essentially, again, we're evaluating on qualifications. Those that rank the highest will be on, I wouldn't say a short list. We're not pre-qualifying anybody and we're not kicking out vendors to, not be able to respond. We're just looking for, during the evaluation process, who ranks the highest on these proposals, especially what kind of innovation can you bring to the table with regard to the project, those that have the higher points, again, there will probably be like a 1, 2, 3 recommended to the board. If something doesn't work out during contract negotiations and we can't make the award happen with the selected contractor, we're gonna move on to contractor number 2.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry?
Thank you. That answers it.
Oh, okay. The question was, are you gonna look at everybody's cost? Again, yes, the idea is to look at everybody's cost.
Range.
Yeah, just to see what I'm working with. But again, those that rank the highest will be selected 1, 2, 3, move to recommendation to the board. This one doesn't work out, we're moving to contractor number 2. Any other
Hi,
questions?
I have one from offline. So when you're looking at the cost, you can look at those. Would the plan be to look at those after all the qualifications ranking has been completed and submitted to the, I guess the board will be the approving authority?
Right, and so that's a question that we're gonna talk internally and we'll give you an answer hopefully by the end of today.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it is being considered. It wasn't in the original proposal, but we're considering it now based on the feedback that we received today, and then we'll give you a response this afternoon.
You mentioned that you were talking to other agencies about either a similar procurement process or similar projects.
Similar procurement process.
And
We modeled this procurement after another agencies,
and who might that be? I'm curious.
CPRA, but don't get them in trouble.
So, were you looking at like an outcome-based performance contract authority, or were you looking?
We're looking at the Krim's gauges.
But from a procurement standpoint, okay.
That we got their bid.
Yeah.
And we took that and we modeled it after theirs because it's very similar to what we're looking for. The difference is they're looking at coastal areas with vegetation and all kind of other stuff. But again, don't get them in trouble.
Yeah, I think that one of the differences between, the Acadiana Gauges network and the CRIMS, network is that the CRIMS network is very specific, protocol and, methodology assigned to those sites. So.
Probably
the
so.
site location, the exact equipment, the exact methods, and everything that's there has been outlined and has been, working now for a very long time.
10 years.
And so, so producing a cost estimate, to go and do something that's very well outlined is different than something, producing a cost estimate, based on an innovative approach.
Right, which is why we adjusted the cost factor in the evaluation. Any other questions online? Any other questions in the room? Y'all have any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, this is Kelly Doherty from Res. How then does the potential oral presentations factor into your evaluation process? If given the way you've described how you're going to evaluate them and then the cost?
I think, we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there, but if we're looking for presentations, it'll most likely be on approach and methodology and innovation. And of course, you would want to probably provide your team's qualifications. If we have questions on cost, we may ask it. I'm not going to say we won't, but ideally, we're looking for what's your approach to this project. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
I know you talked about smaller firms teaming up with larger firms. Is there any negatives to multiple smaller firms teaming up with a larger firm? So the org chart may have 4 or 5 different organizations, as long as we have all the key individuals, there's
Nope.
no negative to that.
Nope, I have no objection to it. In fact, we assign additional points for Hudson Veteran Initiatives and for DVE. So if some of those smaller firms satisfy any of those requirements, they'll get additional points for that.
Sorry, I just want to ask one last clarifying question around the 3A. 3.8 million.
Yes,
That includes the matching fund, so that's the total
that's
pot
correct.
of the FEMA grant and whatever matching fund you had,
That's correct.
for which you have spent some undetermined amount. or
Yes.
Undisclosed amount out of it. So it's 3.8 minus something,
Something.
plus some future funding at a later date and time of an undetermined amount.
Yes.
Got it.
You should have been an accountant.
Right, clear.
Yes.
Yeah, bring more funding, that would be good.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, right, we worked on RFPs that have asked for that,
Oh, wow, okay.
and then we went on, we go help find the additional funding. That's turnkey,
There you go.
shared outcome, tell me where you want to get, let us know what you got, we'll help build it up.
You could always put that in the innovation of. Any other questions? Okay, it's the last opportunity. All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn today's meeting.
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute. I apologize. This is
Okay,
Boyd
no.
Boswell with Two Vegas Smith. I'm having some IT issues today. Probably shouldn't say that. But I'm gonna ask, have addressed it in the question and answers, and I apologize. I don't know if somebody has asked it already today, but currently, or it was the deliverable date was moved from February 3rd to February 17th. Is there any consideration to backing that up another 2 weeks?
Ideally, no. We've been on a lot of pressure for quite some time to deliver this project. We said we'd have it done 2 years ago, and that's just, not realistic. But, again, we're working with the time frame of when can our board actually make a selection. Our next board meeting, if I don't schedule a special meeting, is in May, and I don't want to delay this project another 6 months. Let's just put it that way, because we're trying to work on contracts and get everything approved. So we're just trying to keep moving forward. So we did accommodate for an additional 2 weeks. And I apologize that it happened during the holidays. I really do sincerely. That was not what we wanted to do, but it was just the position we were in to do that. So we did make adjustments, and, we're hoping to get a board meeting scheduled sometime in March to finalize everything so we can move to contract negotiations, because I know that's going to take another month or two to wrap that up.
Thank you.
Any other questions online? Okay, going once, twice. All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. I want to thank those who participated online. I'm sorry you could enjoy the Keller's King Cake today. But for those who are present, feel free to have a piece before you leave. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you guys in proposals and looking to working with one of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.